Our bond is iron. Our will unbreakable. Who will stand against us?
Greetings and citations, everyone. The Orcish Horde, from the friendliest of Frostwolves, the lingering cackles of the Laughing Skull, to the warriors of the Warsong clan, and even the mighty Mok'Nathal. So many Orcish clans to go over. Obviously, one of my favorite things to talk about on this channel are the Orcs of Warcraft, and so many cultures that they all come in. You know it, and I know it. And today we'll be discussing who the current leaders are for the various Orcish clans on both Azeroth, Outland, and Draenor, and a bit of their history involving their predecessors and their overall cultures. Some are a bit more concrete, while some will have to be more speculative. Here are the current leaders of the Orcs. The Shadowmoon were some of the most respective Orcish shamans and spiritualists. Living out in the valley of their namesake, they were known for even studying the stars above them. They revered a fallen Naru at one point that was known as the Dark Star for some time, where they briefly drank in the powers of the void before ultimately shunning it. Their most recent and final chieftain was Ner'zhul, whom was manipulated into warring with their friendly neighbors of the Draenei, through his dead wife of Rokhan, who was actually the deceiver Kil'jaeden in disguise. When the Orcish Horde grew desperate on their dying homeworlds, they soon turned to Ner'zhul to be their war chief, who attempted to ferry the Orcs to the other worlds through countless portals, ultimately leaving most of the Horde behind and stepping through himself, though he soon found himself in no safe haven, and instead was confronted by Kil'jaeden, who tore Ner'zhul apart and forced him into becoming the first of the Lich Kings, sealing his soul inside of the armor and helm of domination. Rokhan in the alternate Draenor, though, would survive and ultimately lead the clan when Ner'zhul chose to wield the powers of the Void through the Dark Star, and then he died. It is unknown what became of her, though it is possible and even likely that she fell to the Lightbound on that Draenor. Rauka Bloodfire is one of the last remaining Mag'har of the Shadowmoon clan that we know of from Outland. It is through her own telling that the clan itself is dead. One could theoretically call her its leader then, if she is one of the only active ones left, though it matters very little if there is no one to follow her. It is possible though that there are some other Shadowmoon orcs out there that we just don't know about, but for right now, there is no one leading the clan, and the clan itself seems to be defunct. The heavily considered mad and deranged Orcish clan, known as the Laughing Skull, was a group that survived in the wilds of Gorgrond, where their rather odd practices, such as wearing skulls and their ability to survive in the harsh landscape against the Batani, Breakers, and other such threats, made them a true contender on Draenor. They were led by Oberys, whom was one of Ner'zhul's chief officers at one point. And when Ner'zhul attempted to leave the rest of the Horde and the Orcs behind on Draenor to their fate, Oberys protested, where he ultimately was then met with his own demise by doing so. Not before giving Khadgar the Book of Medivh as a final act of defiance against their traitorous warchief of Ner'zhul. Since then, the Orcish clan has been on hard times on both Azeroth and their broken planet, now known as Outland, in contrast to their alternate brethren on the alternate Draenor, which are doing surprisingly well. On the alternate Draenor side of things, there is the presumed leader of Kaz the Shrieker, a pyromaniac shaman who would fight against the Iron Horde and Gorgrond, but in the far future, or current present, joined in the ranks of the Mag'har as the assumed leader of the Laughing Skull, where she would help defend Zuldazar against the Alliance. So, if we're to count anyone to be the leader of the Laughing Skull, Kaz would be the best bet. The masochistic and driven Orcish clan of the Shattered Hand was founded by Kargath, whom broke himself and many other orcs who would follow him free from the ogre's imprisonment by breaking their hands apart from their shackles and replacing them with heavy and sharp weapons, liberating themselves free and taking down their ogre oppressors in the very arena that they were forced to fight in for years. They were talented assassins and mighty warriors within the Horde for many years and many battles. However, when Draenor became Outland and the Dark Portal was closed, Kargath became the warchief of the Fell Horde of Outland, and replaced his remaining hand with a secondary blade. And more notably, was a Fell Orc who had drank in Magtheridon's blood, and served Illidan. He was ultimately killed in Hellfire Citadel, where his reign came to an end. His clan, however, did not, and would be led by Gordul of Orgrimmar for a time, who had placed his own loyalties to the true warchief of Thrall and the rest of the Horde, serving as both intelligence, spies, and assassins, until he too was replaced and usurped by Thega Graveblade, though Gordul was ultimately allowed to continue and live for the clan. Thega was one of the chieftains whom attended the first Kosh'Harg on Azeroth, and even invited Garona to join in their ranks, noting how she'd be a powerful and perfect candidate for their people, even citing that she'd be open to Garona to leading them one day if she challenged it, leaving it open on whether Garona would become their leader someday or not. But for the time being, Thega would lead the Shattered Hand. The ever-dominant Dragonmaw clan was well known for its ability to bend dragons of many kinds to their will. Rylix, proto-dragons, drakes, and even dragons themselves. Going through many leaders during the wars against the Alliance and other factions, including dragons as I had mentioned, their own leadership was split when some remained on Outland while others remained behind on Azeroth. Necros II, following Necros I, his father, rather, after a much-deserved death and demise against Alexstrasza, Necros II attempted to carry on the war against the Alliance and the dragons themselves, but ultimately died in the wetlands. Meanwhile, on Outland, Zulahid the Whacked joined in Illidan's ranks in Shadowmoon Valley, where they broke several nether dragons in service to the Lord of Outland of Illidan. He too, though, would die, and his leadership would fall to the Fell Orc of Morgor, who would leave Outland for Azeroth and be killed by Zayla in the Twilight Highlands after he had refused to rejoin the Horde. Leadership fell to Zayla as leader of the Dragonmaw, who was poised to serve under Garrosh and his true Horde, and later the Iron Horde. After surviving the Siege of Orgrimmar, she was stationed in Blackrock Mountain to unleash a massive and devastating Iron Star on Stormwind. But she would fail, and she would ultimately meet her end inside of the mountain. Leadership would then fall to the more honorable Gorfax Angerfang, who'd miraculously survive his own excursions against the Alliance in the wetlands. He intended to follow a far more different path from his predecessors, one without subjugation, and be viewed far more favorably by the rest of the clans and other chieftains through such results. The Bonechewer clan was one of the more resourceful clans when it came to surviving, resorting to eating their own and others, and wearing such broken parts as ornaments, or they would use them for their rituals. Despite this, they were both respected and feared within the Horde. Serving as the bulk of the Orcish and Illidan's Fell Horde, they were especially located within the Hellfire Peninsula. They were once led by Hyrkon Skullsplinter, whom carried the Skull of Gul'dan for a time, after slaying many others who had carried it. Grommash Hellscream had been tasked to collect it, and collect it he did after slaying the Orc Chieftain. Following Hyrkon's death, he was then replaced by Tagar Spinebreaker, whom was also seemingly killed much later in Hellfire Peninsula. Since then, there have been no new leaders for the Bonechewers, and they have remained mostly in Outland since. The Thunderlord clan were a band of orcish tamers who had brought many beasts under their will through domination. They are most famous for their hunts and kills against the giants of Draenor, like the Gron and the Colossi at one point. They were led by Fenris for a time, child of Garad, who had risen in the ranks after leaving the Frostwolf clan behind him, admiring the strength of the Thunderlords immensely. Fenris had joined the Horde with his clan, though his ultimate fate is unknown, and was later succeeded by Garm Wolfbrother, who may have been his son. Garm had also perished at some point and became a spirit, who would give his knowledge and wisdom to the Horde who resided within his village. At this time, there are no known leaders for the clans on both Azeroth, Outland, and even Alternate Draenor. The rather welcoming and kind clan of the Whiteclaws were a neighboring old clan of the Frostwolves, and even got along with them immensely, sharing many similarities in how they treated the wolves and beasts in Frostfire Ridge. They were once led by Zargril, whom harbored views that would have costed Gul'dan his crusade against the Draenei and other such future plans, and thus tasked his mighty assassin Garona in removing Zargril from the board. Leadership and division fell to the other children and spawn of Zargril afterwards, but ultimately it mattered very little, as the Whiteclaw clan would be wiped out much later for its sympathetic nature, and was hounded and hunted down by the more aggressive clans, scattering any that remained and leaving the clan broken and clanless. The Stormreaver clan was a smaller clan led and formed by Gul'dan after the decimation of his Shadow Council. While untrusted by the rest of the Horde, these orcs would be steadfastly loyal to Gul'dan, and only Gul'dan at the time, many of them being warlocks or other such dark magicians. Gul'dan used the entirety of the Stormreaver clan to storm the Tomb of Sargeras after raising the broken shore from the dark ocean's depths, where he intended to pilfer it for all of its lost treasures and powerful relics that it contained inside. Ultimately, almost all of the orcs within the clan suffered the same fate as their master and leader, slaughtered by demons within the tomb. Gul'dan's very skull would be taken away and become a powerful trinket for others. Very few of the Stormreaver orcs remained though. The most notable was Drek'thar, whom was driven mad by the ghost of his slain comrades and clan, and was later even driven mad by the voices of the void. Currently, the clan remains defunct and leaderless. The insane would-be cult of the Twilight's Hammer were led by the two-headed ogre Cho'Gall, apprentice of Gul'dan, where he recruited many of the Pale Orcs, whom spoke of the Hour of Twilight, from all of the dark whispers that they had each heard, making it into a clan. Cho'Gall convinced them to take their dark magics into the Horde, promising them it would aid in their quest to bring forth the true Hour of Twilight. Over time, the clan of these Pale would collectively form into a cult, and Cho'Gall himself would realize the promise in their dark prophecies and words, later allowing races beyond Orc and Ogre to join in their ranks. On Azeroth, they were driven to free the Old Gods and make the Hour of Twilight a reality several times over, through Deathwing and other dark machinations. And while Cho'Gall would ultimately meet their ends within their very bastion, the cult would continue on and were led by the likes of Benedictus, Farthing, Zerexia, and lastly, Bergalosh. It is unknown who now leads the Twilight's Hammer, but it is very likely that it will rise again someday. The ever-twisting yet talented swordsmen and blade masters of the Burning Blade clan were talented warriors who had coated their blades in fire, though later would become more well known for their demonic worship and heavy chaotic nature. They've only recently returned to their swordsman ways under Thrall's leadership. For a time, their cult-like status was led by Ner'zhul Fireblade, whom pretended to act under service to Thrall, when in reality he was still in service to the Burning Legion, though he was not nearly as clever as he perceived himself to be, as he was more so allowed to live so that the Horde could use him to siphon information in stopping the Burning Blade from ever rising again. He and many of his cohorts were eventually put down by Garrosh and his true Horde. Recently, the half-orc and half-Draenei Blade Master of Lantresor, who was originally exiled for his half-breed status, went to Azeroth for the Kosh'Harg there. Originally, he was going to have the clan defunct, but over time grew fond of its members and became their now chieftain. The ritualistic yet powerful gifted Bleeding Hollow was a clan who had farsight better than most, being able to perform many rituals that could either enhance their size and strength, or bear witness to their own demises, through the cost of a single eye, and many other spells. They were led by Kilrog Deadeye for a time, who succeeded his own father by killing him when their people were suffering. Well aware of his own demise, he met his end within Auchindoun against the blade of Danath Trollbane. Later, his only remaining son Joran Deadeye, who had survived within Garadar and Nagrand, among many other orcs and many other clans, would at last join the ranks of the Horde on Azeroth. Attending the Kosh'Harg there, Joran orders the remaining Bleeding Hollow to leave Outland behind them, and make Azeroth their new home. A lesser-known clan, but a clan nonetheless, the Rageroar clan are currently led by Karga Rageroar, who's been tasked to wage war within the Barrens against Northwatch, and his clan has remained since doing. While seemingly killed in one of the battles there, he's managed to somehow survive and even continues his fight against Northwatch base in the Fourth War. The clan and Karga himself have yet to make an appearance elsewhere, leaving him and his clan's fate rather ambiguous. The estranged clan of the Blacktooth was a clan formed by Blackhand to serve as a scouting unit for the Blackrocks. It was named for its odd ritual of knocking out others' teeth for pure loyalty. It was led by both the Blackhand sons of Rend and Maimed, who were tasked to preserve the Dark Portal and later even aided in bringing back the Skull of Gul'dan to Ogrim, whom they greatly despised for killing Blackhand, their father. Ironically, their own loyalty to the Horde would not last upon its defeat, and the clan itself would reform into the Dark Horde, and fall more so under the new leadership of the Blackrock clan under Rend. The clan has since remained forgotten, or just a part of the Blackrock clan, and thus is really no more. The industrious Orcish clan of the Blackrocks had its namesake from the two mountains that they had controlled both on Azeroth and on Draenor, both named the Blackrock Mountain. They were known as experienced warriors, smiths, and miners. They were the bulk of the Orcish Horde and were one of the largest clan for the longest time. And they were led by the first ever warchief of Blackhand. Blackhand was a cruel Orcish leader and a puppet for the warlock Gul'dan. Ogrim Doomhammer would then succeed Blackhand and end his dark influence that hung over the Horde through Mak-Gara, thus making Ogrim both the warchief and chieftain of the Blackrocks of the Horde. Ogrim was a far more honorable leader, but continued the war in Azeroth, knowing the orcs still needed a home. He was the warchief and leader for the Blackrocks until he met his end by an Alliance Knight, where he gave his armor and legendary hammer to the young warchief of Thrall. The Blackrocks, meanwhile, would technically be led by Rend, though some would follow under Thrall's leadership as well, even if he wasn't their chieftain. After Rend's death, however, the Blackrocks would slowly rejoin the ranks of the Horde completely, with the only two lieutenants of Ogrim left to be the leaders. Leadership soon fell to Varrock Sarfang and Eitrigg. And through the former's ultimate sacrifice and demise, Varrock Sarfang would be succeeded by Eitrigg, who would be the last and only current successor left to lead the Blackrock clan. though Eitrigg has a son named Ariok, who could one day succeed Eitrigg and fulfill the role of chieftain should Eitrigg ever pass. But for the time being, the chieftain of the Blackrock clan would be Eitrigg. The uncorrupted orcs of the alternate Draenor, not to be confused with the uncorrupted orcs on Outland, are currently led by Overlord Gaia, the alternate daughter of Durotan and Draka of that timeline, making her Thrall's technical sister in ways. She foresees that all of the alternate clans continue their own cultures under her. Formerly, it was led by the alternate war chief of the Iron Horde, Grommash Hellscream, whom seemingly died to buy the Mag'har more time to escape from the Lightbound. It has recently joined the ranks of the Horde on Azeroth and remains very active within the Horde's own military, recently finding its own home within the Arathi Highlands and in Hammerfall. The half-orc and half-ogre pacifistic clan of the Mok'Nathal were one of the few clans to refuse in joining the Horde. It was formed by ogres who attempted to reclaim their hold on Draenor through acts of malicious and disgusting intent, intending to make an orc super soldier that had the strength of an ogre but the smarts of an orc. The Mok'Nathal ultimately freed themselves, though, with the aid of the Whiteclaws and Frostwolves, where they chose to live a life within the wilds without war, living out their days in Gorgrond, which would one day become Blade Edge Mountain. And through the efforts of Leorox's son, it survived the wrath of Blackhand thanks to Rexxar, whom joined the ranks of the Horde to keep his family and clan safe, but was ultimately exiled and banished through this heroic act. This did not deter Rexxar, though, who would later go on to become a hero for his people and the rest of the Horde that once despised them. Recently, the Mok'Nathal have finally ventured forth onto Azeroth for the first time, and show remote interest in staying there, and potentially even joining in the ranks of the Horde, noting just how different and kind it was from Blackhand's reign. With Leorox's rather old age and Rexxar being the only notable heir, it is likely and highly possible that Rexxar may be asked to carry on his father's legacy. The powerful and iron-willed warriors of the Warsong are well known for their piercing battle cries in combat atop their mighty battle wolves, or battle wargs. Originally, they were led by Grommash Hellscream, known for his harsh and long battles against the ogres whom once enslaved them. He was one of the first of the orcs to drink the blood of Mannoroth and later formed a strong bond with the young orc of Thrall, whom he would later give his life for, and the rest of the orcs, by taking down the pit lord that had kept them ensnared to the Burning Legion. Grommash was succeeded by his only heir and son of Garrosh, whom was later emboldened by his father's end and attempted to follow in his father's footsteps, ultimately failing to, though, as he would take the Horde down a very dark and twisted path. As its warchief and leader, Garrosh would be struck down by Thrall and Mak'Gara, bringing an end to his bloodied legacy. The Warsong, though, would continue under a new leadership of Gorgana, who had been known for a very different outlook from the rest of her family. Despite this, she would pass the trials and become the new chieftain of the Warsong clan, vowing that the Warsong would never disregard their honor in favor of victory. The wise and mighty Frostwolf clan was a clan known for its long bond with their wolves and other beasts, originally led by Garad and later succeeded by his youngest son of Durotan. The Orcish clan was one of the few to understand the corruption that fell caused. With such knowledge, they left the Horde and were exiled. Durotan and his mate Draka tried to stir Ogrim to end Gul'dan's dark path and dark legacy with the Horde. For this, they were assassinated by Gul'dan's agents, and their only son and heir, Guel, later named Thrall, was left for dead. Leadership fell to the Orcish shaman of Drek'thar for the longest time, as the family of Durotan were all presumed dead. However, Thrall, an Orcish gladiator raised to be a weapon for humans, would return to the clan. He would become a shaman under Drek'thar's teachings and strike a rebellion against their human oppressors, rallying the other Orcish clans into action and forming a new horde. Thrall would even become the war chief of the entire horde, but would also dissolve the Orcish clans. In spite of that, the clans did remain active, and the eldest of elders, Drek'thar, kept the lands of Alterac for the Frostwolves. And much later, during the first Kosh'Harg on Azeroth, the Orcish clans would return and reformed, and Thrall seemingly would at long last take the mantle of his father and become the chieftain for the Frostwolves. Okay, alright everyone, that is all of the Orcish clans, or more notable clans, who've still got leaders or had leaders. I did try my best with the research to find other orc clans that were more niche, but not a lot came up in regards to who led them. But I wanted to include as many as I could, even if they were kinda defunct. Who is your favorite clan? Who is your favorite leader? And don't you think the Mok'Nathal should become playable with Rexxar as their leader? I think so. Let me know in the comments down below. Be sure to like, share, comment, and all that jazz. If you'd like to join me in my community's Discord, you most certainly can. We would love to have you to talk about all sorts of stuff and things. And if you like me enough, you can support me on my Patreon like these amazing folks here. But until next time, my friends,